All right, ladies and gentlemen. I will go ahead and call our meeting to order. It is 7:01 p.m. We will start off with a moment of silence, if you will. Just as a reminder, everyone, please make sure that cell phones are either turned off or put on silent. We can all stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, City Clerk Domingo, you will take roll call, please.
Councilmember Clark. Here. Reed. Here. Jackson. Here. Lawler.
Here.
Renell.
Here.
Williamson.
Here.
And Mayor Snyder.
Here. I would like to make a motion to approve the current agenda with the deletion of the discussion on the ordinance for the animal restrictions. I know I'm not the only one that has heard a lot of citizen concerns, so if we can get that pushed back to a later date so that we have time to further investigate, discuss, and come to a better ordinance for all involved.
Support.
Awesome. Second. City Clerk Domingo, can they add a roll call on that, please?
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Reed.
Yes.
Jackson.
Yes.
Lawler.
Yes.
Renell.
Yes.
Williamson.
Yes.
And Mayor Snyder.
Yes. So this evening, we will start off our meeting with a presentation by Dr. Johnson from Albion College.
Joe.
Please, Diane.
Yeah.
Good evening, Dr. Johnson. How are you?
Good.
So did you have like a formal presentation that you wanted to get projected or just here to?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay.
Dr. Johnson, as you speak, if you're comfortable, you can remove your mask just so the microphones can pick you up.
Great, thank you. Okay.
Sorry, just a moment. Just work.
Big question. Don't take requests, big question. Anybody hear about my elephants yet?
No, just the ones.
Just the goats. Clancy and Deb. Yeah.
Okay.
Apparently I go underground. It's fun to learn the river stuff. So.
The golf course, we can buy an additional.
Right.
We do want to shine some light and let you know that we are praying for the college. I said, I just wanted you to know that we are praying for you.
Oh, thank you.
All right,
Good.
up and going.
All right, excellent. Well, thank you, Council, for giving me a few minutes this evening to talk about some of the visioning that we've been doing at the college. What I'm going to go through tonight are a series of projects that we've been thinking about and planning for the last several months, and I'm excited to share them with you now that the board has offered authorization for me to do so. As we get started, I want to say that when we think about redeveloping the campus and providing new experiences for our students, can you go back to the first slide? We're thinking about partnership, we're thinking about infrastructure investments and growth, leveraging the opportunity zone and economic development. That's to say that we're always thinking about the city when we're thinking about the campus as well. So just to give you a start as to where we are, the red line is the age of our infrastructure, and the gray line is the average age of private higher education campuses in the US. So you can see our infrastructure is quite out of date compared to most private higher education institutions. Go ahead. The next couple slides you're going to see are slides of what our competitors have done in the last 10 years. So you can see here that Albion has done some building, and Goucher and Ohio Wesleyan. Go ahead. And again, St. Mary's on down to the College of Worcester. Go ahead. So you may have heard me talk about purpose, belonging, and action as our sort of 3 pillars moving forward. That comes from a marketing study that was done before I came to the college. That is the opportunity zone, the top right hand of the chart does. And so we did a process on campus, sort of developing the language around that. And purpose, belonging, and action are our framing concepts. Now, I've talked about them with regard to how we serve students, but you can also use the same pillars in our relationship with the city. Go ahead. It's a little hard to read, but it says that Albion is a place where we live with purpose, that the college is the city and the city is the college, and belonging, and then in action it says that we act with our community. So we're trying to think about those values and what we're doing in this visioning. Go ahead. And that's true in the artist's rendition of a new potential sign. What the sign says is "Welcome to Albion, the city and the college." And you may know there are 3 signs right now that the college paid for many years ago on the outskirts of the city, and we would like to imagine replacing those as we move forward. Go ahead. We also think about those 3 pillars in what our mission is, and you'll see here that I've broken it up into 3 statements about how we serve students, and we also think about how we serve the city, and so there are 3 statements about how we serve the city as well. Go ahead. And so those fed the design principles for the visioning you're going to see today, that we want to be a welcoming and accessible campus. We want to be focused on our partnerships. We want to be a hub of interdisciplinary excellence and think about sustainability, wellness, and belonging. Go ahead. So what you're going to see today is divided into 2 stages. Stage 1 is the west side of campus as it connects to the downtown corridor. Go ahead. Stage 2 is the east side of campus up along Michigan Avenue, which would be in the out years, probably maybe year 4 and out. Go ahead. So we're going to go through several projects in stage 1. Project 1 is the library. For those of you who've been in our library, this is a complete reformatting of the way we use the library. We have rethought the library as an active academic success space. It started before me with putting a cafe and market in the library. This first floor becomes the first floor of the Cutler Center for Academic Success. Several new programs in there, including a trio SSS program. Go ahead. This is what it looks like in there now after the renovation. I invite you to go onto campus to look at it anytime. It's quite beautiful. Go ahead. This is what the second floor is going to look like when we are done. This will be the new Writing and Quantitative Study Skills Center on the second floor, east side of Stockwell. Go ahead. And there's the layout, and you'll see the Wendell Will room is going to become a reading room again. And that's partly because we did purchase the bed and breakfast, which will become our faculty staff gathering place. So they won't need this room anymore. It makes more room for students on the second floor of the library. You'll also notice there's no books in the second floor, in the third floor stack. Actually, it's the fifth stack. That's because that will become new study and lounge space. That entire floor of the library will be academic success space. Go ahead. This is the top floor of MUD. We intend to reformat to feel like you walked into a conference hotel with a TED Talk stage and breakout rooms for our honors and FIRSTCA students and other students to participate in what feels like a real conference setting. Go ahead. Second project is Citizens Bank across the street here in town. Go ahead. So we intend to redevelop the bank into an active learning setting. The first floor will be the Albion Community Collaborative, and it will be a consulting firm for alumni businesses, as well as regional and businesses and nonprofits and government sector entities. And we will collaborate with the other consultants who are in town. We're not interested in competing with anyone for business. But we do want to have an active learning setting for our students to learn how to run a consulting firm. We have so many students who go into consulting, and we want to be of service. So that's what the first floor will be. The second floor, we are still planning out, but we're thinking about a social enterprise greenhouse or social businesses being launched out of the second floor, open to both community and our students. You notice that the drive-through here is depicted as a pocket park by the illustrator. We think that looks pretty good. We'd love to work with the city on that as a new park entrance to the farmers market. Go ahead. This is just a layout inside the building. We're going to keep an open concept. We're going to maintain the safes. We'll empty them out a bit so there's more room in them, but it's really an open concept, collaborative office space. Go ahead. What it will look like. Go ahead. This is the second story, which we're really excited about. We believe we can remove some of the ceiling. We're going to preserve the historic look and feel of the second floor. If you've been inside the second floor, it's like an admin kind of feel. We're going to preserve that in our redesign of the space and keep, again, mostly an open floor concept with some offices at either end. Go ahead. We think we can remove the ceiling and expose the beams, which will look really nice. Go ahead. Third project is St. Johns Parish. Go ahead. Beautiful building on campus, really stunning building. If you've been inside, you know just how stunning it is. The first designer's rendition tried to stick an elevator on the side of it. We didn't like that. We thought diminished the architectural value of the building, but we do have a commitment that any building we touch from now on, we will move into universal access, which means we will either remove the steps or we will adapt around the steps so that everyone has access to the front door. So on the left-hand side here, you see a switchback ramp that takes you up to the main doors. And on the right-hand side, you can begin to see that there is depressed earth or a tiered structure. Go ahead. That becomes an amphitheater with an ADA compliant ramp going in an arc that goes all the way down to the basement floor. The basement floor is quite large, 13-foot ceilings. And so that amphitheater becomes an outdoor performance, meeting, teaching space. And the ramp grants access to the bottom floor. The top floor will be soft furniture and feel like an atrium between two skyscrapers in a major city. And alumni affairs, careers, and internships will be in the main floor. And down in the basement will be student activities. There's a stage at one end, so karaoke night, spoken word, poetry slam, loft night, that kind of thing for students to know. Part of the reason we're doing this is because we need to build intentional bridges between our alumni and our current student body, so that our alumni can transfer their social capital to our current student body. Go ahead. Oh, one more thing. We're taking out the parking lot there and making it a field, green field. This just tells you the layout of the space that I just went through. So you'll all have a copy of this slideshow when we're done. Go ahead. This is a view of how it connects the campus. At the bottom of the right-hand illustration is the corner next to Kresge and Mudd. Connects the campus to Washington Gardner, which we'll get to in a minute. So it becomes a real connector of Huron for us. Go ahead. Well, project 3 is Washington Gardner. Go ahead. So Washington Gardner sits across the street from the home I now live in. Before COVID got too bad, when I first got here about a year ago now, I had several community meetings. Some of you came to those community meetings in my backyard. We talked about a variety of things, and one thing that came up in every single conversation was this building and its importance to the community. So, despite the fact that one of the first things many board members wanted me to do was tear it down, I went in a different direction and I lobbied the board and organized around the concept to redevelop this building. And the board has now approved of that concept. We're tentatively calling it the Body and Soul Center. You'll see why as we tell you what we're beginning. Go ahead. So before we do a little bit about Washington Gardner himself, he was a reverend before he became a faculty member at Albion College. He was a faculty member for a few years. He was hired to steward something called the New Movement at the time, which was at the time a radical change in the curriculum from Greek and Latin to French and German, and also to start a business school. He started a business department while he was there. He also worked with federal funding and brought federal funding in for McMillan Hall, which was the chemistry building where Olin sits today, Robinson Hall, and Stockwell. He was an original stockholder of Malleable. His son became the vice president and chairperson. His grandson started the Albion Civic Foundation, later to become the Albion Community Foundation. And his son-in-law built the house that I live in today. He also built Munger, which at the time was part of the Parker Inn. One last little detail here. The architect who built the current version of Washington Gardner lived in a house where the Munger place sits today. Parker sawed that house in half, jacked it up, and moved it over to Burr Oak. We didn't know that at the time we purchased that house from Dr. Curtis for our first substance-free house in town. But that we did purchase that house on Burr Oak for a substance-free house, recovery house for students recently. So, go ahead. This first map we know of Washington Gardner, 1872. You can see it in that place. Go ahead. Of course, it wasn't called Washington Gardner then, it was called the Union School. The Union School has stood there since 1872. You can go in the basement. I can take you to a place in the basement where you can put your hands on the original stone foundation. That was made in 1872. The building looks different then than it does now, but this is also an excerpt from the Albion School Yearbook, 1888 to 1889, talking about the importance of public schools. The school that was there, the Union School, which later would become Washington Gardner, and the college have been intimately linked from the beginning. Faculty spouses, faculty themselves, principals and presidents, board members have been shared back and forth between the school and the college. Go ahead. This is after a fire when it was rebuilt in 1903, and you can see the first remainings put on the building. Go ahead. 1906 and 07, the picture's not quite as good here, but you can see it's a bit larger. Dr. John Laird becomes the president about this time, and he starts his presidency saying that they need 3 H's in town. They need a high school, a hotel, and a hospital. And he commits part of his presidency, in fact, most of his presidency, to trying to make that come true. Go ahead. I'm sorry. We'll see. 1916. This is the next illustration we have. By 23 and 26, there is a hospital and there is the Parker Inn. We also use the gym in Washington Gardner for our gymnasium while the current Kresge is built. Go ahead. There is a kind of ironic twist here that part of where we're going to get to today is talking about a new gym as part of Washington Gardner. So this is the school in 33 as we know it today. Interesting little tidbit, the floors in the building, which are terrazzo, are beautiful. We will restore, we'll pull up the linoleum and restore those floors. Are the same floors as in the Catholic Church, which was done about the same time. We think by the same artisans. I don't know when these floors were done, but they're the same terrazzo floors. I would be surprised if they were not done by the same artisans, which is really interesting to me. Go ahead. Go ahead. So in 66, after integration, an all-white student council voted to put a white girl on the last spot for the cheerleading squad, which led to unrest for a few days in the school and bomb scares being called in from other members of the community. Some over-policing going on of the Black students, loitering law at the time, and some general unrest. I stop here for a moment just to say that, you know, the college, again, the college and the high school have been intimately linked. And the next slide, go ahead, shows that linkage.
Marco, did you want to read out loud?
I can read it out loud if you
I
like.
didn't say anything.
Okay. I wanted to give folks a moment to read it. So you can see it's a joint statement of the president and the superintendent protecting students and talking about collaborating with law enforcement to do so. Go ahead. All right, so this is what we want to put in Washington Gardner. Moving ahead, go ahead. So you can see here the existing building is towards the bottom and the addition is towards the back. You can also see in the illustration on the right, behind the little concrete wall, the sidewalk actually depresses, and it does so to make an accessible entrance on the front of the building. It's hard to change the actual entrance because there are so many stairs. The glass is where the lobby will be, and that will be important as you see some slides as we move forward. Go ahead. So first in the back will be a new athletic arena that you'll descend into. You'll enter it from the second floor of the building, and then the arena will be down slightly below grade level in the back. There'll be a full-size practice court in the back with training rooms, coaches' offices, and other support areas. We need to have a gym or we will not be allowed to stay in the NCAA. Kresge is not compliant. Go ahead. This is standing in at the top of the arena. The windows out in the distance face Michigan Avenue. This is the grand hallway that would connect the addition in the back to the rest of the building. Go ahead. The other part of the first floor is, this is the west side of the first floor, is where we would put the YMCA, preserving the gym as a community gym, making space in what used to be the cafeteria for the GSRP classrooms, preserving some space along Michigan Ave for community functions. Go ahead. The rest of the first floor on the east side is music, because the walls don't transmit sound very well in that subterranean floor, but there's still really good light through the windows. Up on the second floor, you can see now where the lobby is, where those glass windows were in the front, and we've removed the wall separating the current office from the hallway to make it a large pre-function area. The auditorium becomes our instrumental ensemble performance, music performance area with an ensemble practice room towards the back left. Go ahead. And you all know that beautiful auditorium. We're going to preserve almost all of the seats. We'll take out one row of seats to move the stage out a bit for acoustic reasons. Almost 600 seats in that auditorium. Go ahead. On the remainder of the second floor in the front will be the art galleries. Our current art galleries, as you know, are in Bobbitt, which is locked, and then the galleries themselves are locked. So it's really hard for anybody to see our art galleries, even our own students. These galleries would be open regularly to the public for viewing, right next to the lobby. Up on the third floor, then, most of the third floor becomes art studios, art teaching rooms, and faculty offices for the art department and art history department. Go ahead. So this is standing in that lobby. Over your left shoulder would be that grand hallway going back down to the sports arena. Straight ahead of you are the art galleries, as well as the open lobby and the windows out on the Michigan Avenue. Down through the hole in the floor is that accessible front entrance on the building. Go ahead. Also in the back of the building is a brand new theater. Go ahead. The theater is a unique theater. It's a flexible theater. The seats descend into the floor and the floor closes so that you can have an event arena, like on the left-hand side bottom illustration. You can have a classic proscenium, like in the middle, or you can turn it into a theater in the round, like in the top left. This would also be open for reservation by the community as well. Remaining space in the building is for the bright yellow is additional classroom space for any department to use, and the sort of orange color is the Department of Education, which would sit just above the YMCA. Go ahead. Go ahead. So that's Washington Gardner in a nutshell, but we're thinking about how Washington Gardner might be an anchor for some additional economic development. Before I go through that economic development, I want to tell you about a couple of aspects of the building. So we've been exploring the possibility of collaborating with the Smithsonian in many hallways where the lockers come out of the walls. And I know Bobby Wall has a great collection with regard to African American history in the city from 1916 forward. And we're thinking about an Albion African American History Museum, glass cases back in the walls where the lockers come out. I've also talked with Vivian Davis about the possibility of restoring some or all of the Wildcat memorabilia into the building. And the board has been considering and is very favorable, and I believe will approve in May, that anyone who graduated from this school as a middle schooler or a high schooler or taught in the school or served in the school as an administrator would have the ability to apply for honorary alumni status in the college. So we're trying to see this building as a shared asset between the college and the community. Let me just say one more thing about the YMCA. The YMCA as a partner is significant for a variety of reasons. We wanted to partner to support them bringing wellness into the community. We also want to help them grow in the community. So we're choosing not to invest our own money in our own capacity for wellness and instead contract with them to provide wellness on campus. That gives them a foothold and a stability in the community in terms of a revenue stream so that they can remain here. And we're excited to be able to partner with them to do that. They also then will become access to the rest of the campus for the community because they'll have access to reserved space on campus for any community event. And that will begin on the 22nd when they open the pool back up for limited use by the community. So returning to the slide then, this is again a vision image. Wesley is up at the top right, Washington Gardner's in the center. There is an illustration of a potential elementary school next to Washington Gardner. Munger is there as well. And there's a comment about making the rail extension into perhaps a loop, bike loop or walking loop. There's also a potential retirement development there. As you know, the Community Foundation and the city and others have been working on a retired housing commission to develop ideas about retired housing in the community. This is just one idea. I know the commission has other ideas, but this was a vision that we had, and I'll show you a little bit more about it in a bit. Go ahead. Actually, I'll show you right now. So, you know, the food hub has been purchased, of course, and the folks who hand out food came to me and asked, do you have a space we can use? So we did about 2 weeks of thinking and planning and ended up at the basement of Wesley where there used to be a cafeteria. So we have begun a redevelopment of that space. Bill Dobbins has helped with some of the demolition, and I think right now new carpet, lighting, and other things are going into the space. I think April 23rd, maybe, might not have that date right, will be the first time that food is distributed out of that space. We've also added a new road that goes from the interior of the parking lot down the green space behind Wesley to the second piece of property that we own before it exits back out onto the street. That's so that we can get at least 50 cars off the street on distribution nights to try and help with the traffic. Still have to talk with the chief about how we're going to manage that traffic, but we think this is a better solution than for traffic than what has been currently happening, and we're eager to be helpful there. We want to go beyond food distribution though. Matt's has agreed to start doing community cooking classes for free out of there in the fall, and they have a program where they distribute kitchen utensils and cooking supplies that go with the lesson they're teaching. They have a third of their business in hospitals, and they do this program in hospitals a lot of the time in communities. So we're pretty excited about them doing that out there too. And then now we started thinking about how can we provide some food as well. So we probably will do a few acres of sweet corn this year out at the equestrian center that will be distributed for free out in Wesley. Also, Summit Point came and asked if they might move into Munger, so we're working with them on the second floor of Munger to co-locate them with the clinic. And we're in conversation with a couple of other health-related entities as well. So what we're trying to do is create a set of buildings, as I said, that are shared spaces between the community and the college. Go ahead. This is looking west on Michigan. And the primary purpose of this illustration is to show where Bobbitt and the Bobbitt Annex are no more. You can see the expansion of the College Green to connect the science complex to the rest of the College Green by adding more green space. Bobbitt and the Bobbitt Annex are gone. The little piece of Perry Street that's there is filled in. The end of Hannah Street is also filled in, and the two new buildings sit out on Michigan Ave. Now, these buildings are imagined. We haven't done any planning for them yet. These are sort of what we pulled out of the sky as we thought about this. The first one is a medical arts building or engineering building that we would imagine partnering with one or more of the community colleges to occupy part of. Again, going with the shared space concept. The second building there, the Innovation Hub, is very common on campuses these days, and it's a building where the downstairs would be occupied by early stage ventures who want to collaborate with our students and our faculty, and the upstairs would be classrooms and faculty offices. Because the campus sits inside the opportunity zone, it can be quite attractive for businesses to locate there while they grow. And we think this could be an economic driver for the city. Go ahead. This is that view again from the south looking north on Huron at the connection between campus and Washington Gardner, and an emphasis here that the church can become a community convening space. Go ahead. So finally then, I think this is finally, this is our concept around adding an elementary school adjacent to the public school. Now, what I want to say here is a couple of things. This is the architect's depiction based on the data and regulations provided by the Marshall Public School District, and as the architect understood them from the Michigan Department of Education. So it does provide meets all of the regulations in terms of space and square footage, outdoor space and indoor space. access for safe drop-off. All of those are met in this design, but it is a conceptual design, and so more work would have to be done. We think we can help the school district economize and save money on the cost of the building and put that money into programming by connecting it to our building because it reduces the engineering costs. Go ahead. This is a back view looking south. This is the top view. Traffic circle is where children will be dropped off by buses. It's a protected drop off. No one else will be in the drop off except for the buses. You see that it connects to the building, and there's a little wedge of white there, which would allow children to go to the YMCA after school and never have to go outside. We think that's a pretty cool concept. There are 2 private properties that are not represented on this. I want to be clear about that. Anna's Flowers and the State Farm Office. And this design can work with those 2 properties intact, but the architects rendered it this way. Go ahead. This is a front view. Now, we think this is a good idea. And we think this is a good idea because we think the college can provide a lot of resources and partnership and collaboration to a school that is immediately adjacent to campus. I have a hard time getting students to come to Ludington. I have an even harder time getting them to go down to Harrington. This, they practically can roll out of bed and be there to mentor children. Additionally, several of our faculty have been excited, particularly our arts faculty, at the potential collaboration. It also gives the school children access to our theater, the auditorium, the museum I mentioned, as well as the practice gym as additional space that they would have access to use. Go ahead. Project 5 is student housing. We want to move students closer to downtown. Go ahead. So this is the green space behind Kresge and the lumberyard. And over the next few years, we'd like to redevelop those into new intentional housing. Intentional housing we probably know most about is fraternities, but there are other forms of intentional housing, like an LGBTQ house or a sustainability house. And so that's what we want to develop on those 2 areas, with a walking trail that would take students from campus into town without having to be on the city streets as much as possible. And then using a walking bridge across the river and into that pocket park next to the bank. Go ahead. Finally, we know the train is going to be changing some things in town, and what we've been told so far by MDOT is that they are most interested in closing at least 2 and possibly 3 crossings to make the train more safe as they put high speed through. So we will have a challenge with the data because two of the intersections they told us they're very interested in closing are Hannah and Erie Street. Go ahead. So we have to have a connector, and the connector we're imagining is this footbridge, which would be open to the public, connecting the south side of campus above the train tracks to the Dow Center via this overhead walking bridge. Go ahead. That's it. There you go. So questions, thoughts, ideas?
Any questions for Dr. Johnson?
What was that, Marco?
I said, I like it.
Good. I like that you like it. It's a lot, yeah. And we didn't even get to Belmont yet.
Councilwoman Lanu?
Thank you, Mayor Sarah. Thank you, Dr. Johnson. This was a lot, to cover, and it definitely needs time to digest. I heard you mention specifically, with regards to like the theater and different things that could be accessible to the community. And I'm curious if there, because it seems like that's been, spoken about quite a bit, and I don't know if it's liability or what has prevented that, but I'm curious if you could just speak to how you envision that being possible.
Yeah, it's hard to know what is in line with prior presidents. I have seen some written documentation that suggests that there was an abundance of concern about liability issues. I have done, my homework with my senior team, and we feel pretty confident that if we have a long-term contract with an agency like the Y, that we can mitigate any of those liability concerns because they can be the access point to the public space. And that is their job. They manage public access. That's what they do here in our clubs. Most of our insurance carriers don't deal with that kind of entity. They deal with small colleges. And most small colleges aren't open to the community the way that we imagine being open to the community. So they'd have a hard time getting their head around what that would look like from an insurance perspective. But as soon as we have a partner like the Y, whose job it is to manage public access all the time, then it becomes a non-issue.
Thank you.
Yes, Councilman Shay.
So what's the timeline? So I've had the privilege of seeing this presentation a few times, and I rarely ask questions, but this is a pretty ambitious master plan. I mean, this is a master plan for what you're doing. And a lot of that just, as you were presenting, each time I find something new that's gonna require a lot more collaboration than just what we see on the screen. So what is a reasonable timeline for this to begin? Because again, this does require approval, especially the Department of Schools, it's gonna require board public.
Sure, absolutely.
There's planning and zoning. I mean, what is your timeline?
So we would like to start, we'll start ceremonially on some of these with the celebrations of inauguration and graduation at the end of the school year. There are donors who are eager to be recognized for their participation. So we would like to kick off the bank this summer, the first floor of the bank. We would like to kick off or start pretty soon actually with a new roof and windows on the Catholic Church. To start on that facility in the outdoor amphitheater, those three elements there. And then Washington Gardner, we are hoping to have a fence installed and beginning groundwork at some point this summer. So those are the three sort of big projects. The library is already well underway and will be done shortly. But none of those projects are going to be quick projects. Right? If we started today and we went as fast as we possibly could on the Washington Gardner project, it's at least a 36-month project. It's a big project. The bank is different. The bank is mostly an internal renovation. The systems are still good in that building. And so that's, putting up some new wallpaper and some new light fixtures. It's a little more than that, but you know what I mean. The church is someplace in between. There's no heat, cooling, and limited water access in that building right now. So there are some systems issues in that building. We'll probably fit a new electrical entrance in that building as well. But we can do some things to preserve the building right away. And that's putting a roof and the windows on the building is as much about preserving the building as it is about renovation. It needs to be done right away to preserve it. So.
This was a question.
In one of your versions of the presentation, you had information out about a stadium being built behind Washington Gardner, but it wasn't on this.
Yeah, that's
was it?
there. It's the sports arena.
Okay.
Yep, it's in there.
And so kind of like had made mention about the businesses that are currently on Michigan Avenue, what about the residential homes?
It doesn't have to touch any of that. It sits on an existing property footprint.
Councilwoman.
Thank you, Mayor Sam. Hearing your question reminded me of a concern I had heard about the development with regard to the neighboring entities and the property values. And I know they had the amendment and different things in place to kind of manage potential concerns, but if you could just speak to the whole notion of gentrification and the impact on the ecosystem that is our community and how you're mitigating that.
So we're working on a few different strategies. We will announce a new approach to the Harrington neighborhood that expands the footprint significantly to the north of Michigan Avenue and adds some affordable housing components to that program. We are also, just now starting to have the community conversations. So I've done, I think, 4 community conversations so far. And next month we'll pull together a community advisory committee to help us think through variety of issues we've identified from those community conversations, like gentrification, like parking, a few other issues. And I think part of the solution will have to come in collaboration with the city, because I'm sure the city has a plan that it would like us to know about and wants to have us think about that plan as we're thinking about our plan. So part of Ray Barkley joining the staff is so that we have a consistent connection with the city. Ray's here tonight, and he sits on a couple of commissions and is helping to navigate some of that.
Thank you.
So you did bring up parking. Do you guys have some initial spaces that you're thinking about to utilize? Especially since with Michigan Avenue, the current way it's being modeled right now, there's no parking on Michigan Ave. Not really seeing a lot of, at least in my mind, how I envision those neighborhoods, just not a lot of additional space that would hold the number of parking spaces that you need for both a new arena and a school building.
So we're looking at some of the properties that are on the north side of the railroad spur that are owned by the land bank. And there's a couple of properties I think the city owns as well that we want to be in conversation with you about. We also own a parking lot at the north end of Huron that was part of the old school. It's got a chain link fence around it right now. There's a camper in it. So we have some of that parking as well. And we are also thinking about other parking venues on campus.
Been a lot of deep thinking. Now with the school, if it's put where you planning on putting it, is it going to be, for instance, people leave town?
I'm not gonna be here forever, sure.
Is that going to be a stable place where the school is going to be?
The board of trustees will cede the land to the school district and will make at least a 30-year agreement for whatever we need to in terms of the connection between the buildings.
Right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, so now we are able to go on with public comments. So I know that there were quite a few citizens that were planning on being on to talk about the ordinance for the pets. So I just kind of want to remind folks that, you know, that's no longer on the agenda and we need to keep these comments to agenda items. And so we can go ahead and open that up. So we do have one person on right now.
It's just one individual, Garrett Brown.
Garrett, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Sure can, go ahead.
Okay. I just wanted to, just comment and thank President Johnson for the presentation. I think that it's great that he realizes that, you know, charity begins at home. And I think that this is a really great opportunity to bridge the town and gown divide. So one, I don't know, did you all remove it during the agenda approval thing? I know you can't respond, but the animal thing, well, I guess I can't talk to it, but so the first thing is the resolution 2021-13 regarding the contract with Loomis for the water treatment. I don't know if this has been answered, but is this a cost increase or decrease for the city to do it this way? And is there any kind of legal issue, you know, if we have a potential former employer, you know, coming back and contracting with the city? So those are just two questions that I had. And then also for the issue of the appointments, I know in previous years when I had made some appointments of some very qualified individuals who are from outside the community, there were some concerns raised about residency. I know one of the nominees is not a resident, and I think that they represent maybe the Opportunity High School. And I was just curious about how that came about, and if that person answers to the superintendent, would it have been better to have maybe the superintendent in that role? So those are the two questions I had about the, the residency issue, and then the issue of, how do we, if we're going to have representation from educational system, Albion is in Marshall, but there's other communities that are around here too. So those are the main concerns, and I was going to object to the animal ordinance, but I'll wait and see how that develops. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Jim Podsma.
Who?
Jim Podsma,
No. Well,
he raised his hand.
yeah. Okay. He usually comes at the end of it.
No, that's Commissioner.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council people. I just want to commend President Johnson on his presentation. I'm excited about the Art Center for Community and excited about that starting as early as this summer, and really pleased to know that that bank in the center of downtown Albion will be reused in this fashion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Not seeing any others at this time.
Consent calendar. Do I have a motion to approve?
Support.
City Clerk Domingo, you want to take one call on that?
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
Lawler,
Yes.
Lanu,
Yes.
Yes.
Williamson, and Mayor Snyder.
Yes. In your packets, you have applications for vacant seats available on the EDC. We have one from our very own Vic Park. We have one from Ben Wallace and Annette Norris. Oh, I'm sorry, and Herman Hall. I'm sorry, yes, it's a report. Motion to approve. And support. Did you support?
Point of information, I'm just wondering, just procedurally, we're getting it so we can talk about it on the floor right now, we're not actually approving these appointments right now.
Yeah, so I was, yeah.
Okay.
That's what
Okay.
I was, yeah. That's what I-
Thank you.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Okay, so, okay, I'll support it for
Okay.
discussion.
So do we have discussion? Yes, Councilor Wilson.
I'm supportive of every candidate on the list that the mayor's brought up for appointment. In terms of appointing their initial appointments, the reappointment I have concerns about, simply because EDC and the DDA and the chamber were tasked by the city and with their boards to talk about creating a consolidated effort to move the economic progress of our community forward. And under Mr. McCall's leadership as Economic Development Corporation, they failed at that task this last week. In fact, EDC voted down moving forward with the chamber and the DDA to create a consolidated effort similar to MEDA or other communities. And so I think before we vote yes on Mr. McCall, I think maybe we should consider how we want these boards to function moving forward, because I don't think currently the EDC acted in the best interest of the city by voting down moving forward with the conversation of consolidated efforts. So that's to say, I would be incredibly supportive of every candidate except for Mr. McCall at the moment, and would entertain tabling this until another meeting. Maybe we could have some more discussion about why he needs to continue to serve in that capacity. I yield.
Any other comments?
I think
Councilor Hall.
Paul is on the EDC board.
He is, but he has an application to get reinstated.
Yes.
So his term was up. Yeah. So he is reapplying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is what we're doing now, aren't we? We're okaying their applying for the position.
Yeah, but Councilman Williamson has issue with him getting reappointed.
He's been on there for.
You understand what he just said, though?
Yeah, I understand. I think I understood what he just said, but I think Herman's been on there a long time.
So there was
He's done a
True.
very good job.
Let him say this.
Yeah, so Councilman Williamson, go ahead.
Just to re-clarify what I said, the EDC, the chamber, and the DDA have all been through a conversation process where they were talking about creating a collaborative service unit, I think initially called Albion first, to create a synergistic economic development authority in Albion that kind of encompassed all the way from downtown to big manufacturing under one roof. The EDC board was the last board to vote on move that either forward or backward, and under Mr. McCall's leadership, the EDC voted that down completely this last week. So because of his leadership, the board decided that they were not going to move forward with the Albion first, which is a lost opportunity for this community economically when it comes to telling the story and being inclusive of businesses and trying to drive more economic success in the community. So what I'm suggesting, and I will make the motion if no one else does, I will move to table Herman McCall's reappointment until further discussion, or if the mayor would like to reappoint somebody else. So that's what I'm getting at.
Because what, you remember what we were talking about at our last study session was about how we really need to promote. And so we need the chamber, we need to help promote what we have here in Albion. And this would have been an ideal way of doing it, you know, putting them together to create an Albion first. But the EDC decided to vote that down.
EDC, not actually Mr. McCall, but more people on that board voting.
He was the
But he was,
the director.
yeah, yes, so Councilwoman,
Yeah, he was
Keep going.
yeah, Councilwoman Hart, so she got her hand raised.
And from what I understand, the other models, in some of the other cities that have done this particular type model by merging all these entities together, it has been very successful and, has helped grow, the economic growth in the cities, because why? They all sort of intertwine anyway, what they're doing, to help, a city grow. So, I think I had asked in the last meeting where we were at with that and, what had happened with that. So I would make a motion that we table his, application at this time and maybe get some more information of why or for what reason they saw that it wasn't, something that would be applicable for us.
Did you want to, okay, go ahead.
So I'll make a motion. I move to remove the Herman McCall application reappointment to Economic Development Corporation at this time.
There's support.
So now there's discussion and then.
Yes, Councilwoman.
Just to reiterate my point, this is not a personal decision. Mr. McCall, has had distinguished service on the EDC board. Unfortunately, it's just an unfortunate situation where the EDC, the chamber and the DDA were working on a big project for this community to drive economic success in all corners of the community. And the EDC board under Herm's leadership failed to move forward on that conversation. And so these types of decisions have consequences, and one of the consequences is that you don't get reappointed right away, and there's going to be a lot more conversation. So I'm urging my fellow council members to vote yes on removing Mr. McCall's application tonight. It does not mean that he would not get reappointed or appointed at a later date, but I think there needs to be more discussion by council and what we hope for the EDC to achieve on behalf of council and the community going forward.
Any other comments? Yes, Councilwoman.
Thank you, Ms. Mayor. Well, I guess I'm kind of confused because, like, Councilmember Williamson was saying that, the three entities was thinking about, collaborating together. So I do see some other people that want to get on the EDC, so, I mean, why just him?
Well, because
But like Ms. Reed said, it's just under his leadership, but it don't mean that he did it, don't do it.
go ahead, yeah.
I'm just trying to understand.
Mr. Hall voted no. He voted no at a public meeting of the EDC on moving forward with Albion first. Within, he encouraged other board members to vote no on Albion first. And as the leader of this board, the president of the EDC board, it was his job to either move progress forward or tell people to do what he did, which was to vote against Albion first. So under his leadership, it didn't happen. And so I'm questioning whether we want to appoint him back to that board and have a conversation later.
Thank you. Yes, Councilwoman.
I guess I could go along with it, but I know that there's more people on the board than one. And evidently, they justified him, they evidently allowed him to do that because they had said to him, just because you're the leader, that does not, we do not have to support what you want to do. And he could, I don't see where he could have done that just by himself. And I would like to really know what's behind why he did what he did.
So, okay. Yes. Councilman, I'm sorry, Mayor Bertrand.
Yeah, so I do think that's why we kind of agree, we want to know too before we reappoint. We want to know what brought that group decision.
Yes.
And just to kind of button this up, I would do this whether it was Mr. McCall, Mayor Snyder, because she also serves on the board. Anybody who voted no on making progress for economic development would be receiving the same sort of treatment from me tonight about this project. So this is not a personal attack at all. This is about our future economically in Albion and wanting to have good paying jobs and an economic story that makes sense. So thank you.
Any other comments? Yes, Councilwoman.
Thank you, Mayor Snyder. Councilman Williams just indicated that you serve on the EDC's board, if I heard correctly. Do you have anything to share or add as to kind of what led to this decision? Because I've been, anxiously waiting where this is going to lead, and this is a twist, so I'm definitely anxious to know.
So they felt it wasn't the best use of their resources and staffing to work with the chamber and DEA to create the Albion first. So they voted no. I voted yes. Yes, go ahead.
If I may, yes, to add to what Mayor Snyder said, the subcommittee, which consisted of myself, Herman Call, who represented the EDC, Amy Ryman, who represented the chamber, and then Emily Rebecca, who represented the DDA. The chamber and DDA, both boards, they are in support of moving forward with creating the service agreement with the new entity Albion first. We kind of got put on hold because we had not received a definitive answer from the EDC board. So at the last meeting, they brought it up for a discussion again and needed to take action. As a board, they voted that they were happy with how things are happening at the EDC. They do have they're the only board who has 2 employees, and so they did not want to disrupt the services that are happening currently at the EDC. What that mayor did encourage, after having our study session, that council feels that it is important to spread economic development through all corridors in our community. So she did highlight that point and really stress and encourage that this would be an efficient way for these boards to operate within our community. Unfortunately, they felt that it was not proper time to make that change, so they ultimately decided to opt out. So that's just briefing from last week's.
Yes.
Thank you both very much. And just to clarify, that's obviously different than when we initially started the planning and conversations around this back in November. So I just wanted to clarify that.
All right, any other comments? So I have a motion on the table to approve the other appointments, except for Herman Paul, because we would like to have a discussion on it.
Sorry.
Just as a point of clarification, you have a motion, I believe there was a motion to table 1.
Yeah, table
So
1.
you need to vote on that, and then you have a motion, you already have a motion and a second to approve the balance.
Okay,
So 2 votes.
so then can we take the first vote on to table the application for Mr. Paul. City Clerk, please.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Reed.
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
Lawler,
Yes.
Lanu,
Yes.
Williamson,
Yes.
and Mayor Snyder.
Yes. Now we have a motion to approve the applications for Vicky Clark, Ben Wallace, and Annette Norris. City Clerk, here we go.
Councilmember Reed.
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes. Yes.
Lawler,
Yes.
Lanu,
Yes.
Williamson.
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
and Mayor Snyder.
Yes. Mayor Pro Tem, did you have a comment?
Yes, I did, I need to bring it up, because, so we clarify with the applicants that did not, thank you so much. Applicants that don't live inside the city limits, there is something that says as long as they did business or something, or work inside the city limits, that they could be, they could apply to be, okay, I was making sure. That was the question that I had, that's what I've known before, but that's what I've read, what I've seen, that was my only question that I had. Okay.
All right,
Thank you so much.
for the good discussions, I appreciate it. All right, so we are going on to, motion for the approval of the MIOSHA repairs. No, engineering services. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, motion to approve the engineering services agreement with Wightman and Associates.
So moved.
All right, that's it.
Yeah, I have any, questions or comments on this?
I can get that. At the last council meeting, Vicky, our head engineer with Wightman Associates came and presented before council, you all agreed to move forward with renewing the service agreement with them. Our city attorney drafted the agreement that is before you, and if you would like to add anything to that, but it's recommended for approval.
Yeah,
I would say I actually didn't draft it, but I did make several modifications to it. It looks, I don't know if they responded with any issues, but it looks like all my modifications are here. Some of the modifications that I made were just making sure that we had the 10-year term cap in there. That they're providing us with copies of their insurance on an annual basis. I put in the non-discrimination clause. Things like that, but I'm good with it as written.
Okay, and they did review, the only change that they made, I think, was the name, it was Wightman and Jones previously, and they just updated it to what their current company name is.
any other questions? Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Then my only other concern was how often do they, let us know about the insurance?
Annually.
And, okay, that's.
Anything else? City Clerk, Domingo?
Councilmember Jackson,
Yes.
Lawler,
Yes.
Lanu,
Yes.
Williamson,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Reed, and Mayor Snyder.
Yes. Motion to approve the annual mechanical amusement devices, for April 1st to March 31st, 22.
So moved.
Support. Any questions or concerns on this? City Clerk, Domingo, do you want to add anything on this?
They haven't vetted to the city and do not owe the city anything.
All right, take roll call vote on this, please.
Councilmember Lawler,
Yes.
Lanu,
Yes.
Williamson.
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Reed.
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
and Mayor Snyder.
Yes. Motion to approve the annual garbage license for April 1st to March 31st, 22.
So moved.
Support.
Questions, concerns, comments? Ellen?
Just as a point of clarification, these are the garbage licenses for commercial service.
Oh, commercial service. All right, roll call please. Clerk?
Councilmember Lanu,
Yes.
Williamson,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
Lawler,
Yes.
and Mayor Snyder.
Yes. Motion to approve the 2 grower medical marijuana licenses for Hungry Enterprises.
So moved.
There is support. City manager, Snyder, do you have info on this?
Yes, I want to turn it over to Attorney.
Okay.
So, yeah, this is a facility that we've approved in the past, that are reapplying for new permits. They've been vetted by the departments and they've gone through planning, so we're recommending approval. And just as a reminder to council, these packets that you have, they do need to be turned back in after the meeting. I will walk out of here.
Any questions or comments for Colin on this? All right. City clerk, can you go roll call please?
Councilmember Williamson.
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Jackson,
No.
Lawler,
Yes.
Lanu,
Yes.
and Mayor Snyder.
Yes. Motion to approve the extended deadline for the local income tax.
So moved.
Support.
Colin, you want to add a little info on this?
Yeah, so I was requested to draft this resolution, which has been updated for quite the June 1, that 2021 deadline that mirrors the federal government has extended their deadline, and obviously you can't file your city taxes until you file your federal taxes, so by extenuation, we're extending these.
Any questions for Colin on this? All right, roll call please.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
Lawler,
Yes.
Lanu,
Yes.
Williamson,
Yes.
and Mayor Snyder.
Yes. Motion to approve the resolution to award the Albion Trail Expansion Project to Vernon Excavating. Support. City Manager Snyder?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So this project has been an ongoing project that started back in 2017. The city was awarded a grant from the Michigan part of the actual trail fund. This is just, we are actually looking forward to get this project completed this year, so we're looking forward to expanding the Albion River Trail from North Albion Street, just right past the bridge onto Austin Ave, right before Bernstein Drive. The project is funded solely by grant funding with just a $10,000 match that has already been previously committed by council. So we are just recommending that we award this project and looking forward to getting it completed.
Yes, Colin?
Just one thing on the resolution, this is my bad. Under the first resolve, it references contract modification number 1, that should be stricken, that there is no contract modification for this bid award.
Any questions or comments?
I'll move to approve it with that amendment of striking that.
Ready, second? All right. Motion to approve with the modification on the written addendum or the approval for the resolution. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Reed,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
Lawler,
Yes.
Lanu,
Yes.
Williamson,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
and Mayor Snyder.
Yes. Motion to approve the resolution to award a water operator contract to Loomis Water Consultants. City Manager Smith.
So
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Support.
Yeah, motion and support.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So the city, we are, even requires us to have an operator in charge over our water facility as well as our wastewater treatment plant. We currently have, we really stress and encourage our employees to obtain these licenses. Unfortunately, we do not have an employee on staff who has the level of license to be our OIC. So we are recommending that we enter into a service agreement with Jane Loomis, who served previously as our water department. He has a wealth of knowledge and knows the city's infrastructure well. To answer the questions during the public comment, we have confirmed with MERS that it is okay that we entered into an agreement with the previous employee. To add on to this, we are also encouraging our employees to obtain the licenses that we are required. I know that they are scheduled to take the exams to receive those. But just with COVID, it's kind of slowed that process down. And also to address that question, it's not an additional expense. This is kind of a standard rate on what we've entered into with the company I to provide that service with us. So it's not an increase to the city. We would have to, something we have to do. We're required by law to have this. So we're recommending approval with that. And there's Colin with his hand up.
So I just wanted to point out, I know I spoke with City Manager Snyder ahead of the meeting as well as Director Miller. I knew it's been a long Monday. The agreement that's in the packet is not the revised agreement. I made significant modifications to the agreement. I'm told that the contractor, Loomis Water Consultants, has approved that modified agreement, but I just want the council to be aware that they're approving the agreement, a modified agreement, which you do not have here tonight, because the city did not receive back approval prior to the meeting tonight.
So we shouldn't vote on this.
No, you can vote on it, but you're voting, you vote on the modified agreement that was sent to the contractor, not this agreement that you have before.
Do you want to add what those modifications were?
Sure. Sure. That's probably it. So let me tell you what the modifications are. So probably the biggest modifications are there were reference the insurance paragraph. Right now it describes just giving a description of insurance coverage. I modified that such that the contractor has to list us as an additional insured maintaining a policy of at least $1 million, and they have to provide us with proof of that coverage while they're during the contract. Another significant change I made was that the right now the indemnity provision says that we'll indemnify them, which would not be typical with an independent contractor. Generally, an independent contractor would indemnify us. So I made that change to the indemnification section. I added in a non-discrimination clause again. Those are the biggest changes. There were some other little non-substantive changes that I made, but those are the biggest ones. So the council is fine to approve the resolution, and I would just say that it's just with the caveat that you're approving the agreement as amended by the city attorney. I think we're covered.
And we will provide you all with that updated agreement for your review and record.
That's all. I enjoyed that. Questions, comments? Mayor Pro Tem?
Well, you did answer the one that I had underlined, which was number 7. That's kind of how I wanted to go under. Is there anything under this 5 that you that was small to you that you spoke to him?
I'm sorry, can you say that?
Under 5. The termination of the agreement upon 30 days, I agree with that. And then the payment invoice.
The way that I changed,
Yeah, please. I had things I had underlined.
sorry, just bear with me, just loading this up here. Okay, so paragraph 5. And actually, in the amended version is now paragraph 8. The way that it reads now is as follows. It says contractors shall bill for services rendered and reimbursable costs incurred on a monthly basis. Costs shall require pre-approval by the city for reimbursement.
Yes, yes, thank you.
Is that it? Okay.
That's it. And then also, there was something else that kind of really struck me, and that was about, anything not falling on him. But it came back to us basically.
You probably were referring to the indemnity clause.
Okay,
So how that reads now is contractor as an independent contractor agrees to indemnify, defend, and hold the city harmless from any and all liability arising out of contractor's performance of services under the terms of this agreement, including any liability resulting from intentional, negligent, or reckless acts or the acts of employees or agents of contractors.
All right, that is what I read through this contract, so.
I got you covered.
Thank you so much.
Any other comments, questions? All right, city clerk, please.
Councilmember Jackson,
Yes.
Lawler,
Yes.
Lanu,
Yes.
Williamson,
Yes.
Clark, Reed, and Mayor Snyder.
Yes. All right, so next we have our discussion on the Michigan Avenue reconfiguration. Councilman Lawler, if you wanna take the lead on this?
Thank you, Ms. Mayor. I decided to bring this back to council. It was a real big headache for a lot of us. But what I wanted to do was see if we could get the same courtesy as the downtown, and I'm just saying what was proposed to me. The businesses on Michigan Ave would like the same courtesy as the downtown has as far as parking. Also wanted to know, would there be another chance to comment in person, face to face, if we could? I was saying that maybe due to COVID, we wouldn't be able to, but I said I would ask. I wanted a timeline of when the project would start. I didn't know if we had that information just yet. I know it's kind of still early, but I did want to throw it out there. I know I had gotten an email saying that, you know, MDOT can do kind of what they want, but for us to vote on something that they wanted from us, and we want something too for our businesses, I feel like we should be able to come to them and say, hey, let's try to refigure this out, because our businesses are gonna be struggling. I don't know if that's our problem or not, or if that's a VDA problem or anything like that, but I just feel like this specific business has been there for a very long time. For people, I'm being told that are working in there, may lose customers. There may be 4 families that might be out of work to help support their families. So I'm just trying to figure out what is it, or do any of us have any suggestions that we can make to maybe the land bank, or something that our city manager may can find, or one of us can even find, to try to help the businesses. I'm not sure.
Councilman Clark?
I received a phone call today, and there was, a question of how this was brought forward. And I was under the, and this might be my own ignorance, but I was under the assumption that this was spearheaded from MDOT, but, after, the conversation that was brought to me today, that's not the, way this reconfiguration happened. So for what I understand, there was someone that contacted MDOT, and then and then brought to the city, and then we took it to MDOT. Is that correct?
Yep, no, if I may, thank you, Mayor. When speaking with them, that the conversations for reconfiguring this roadway have been happening for over 3 years, they said. So it's been a long time. They are aware that there are several safety hazards along that roadway, and that is the end goal for this proposed reconfiguration, is to address the safety hazards along that. I think with COVID, things kind of stopped, or not even, it was pre-COVID, I think, with the recent incident with the college faculty member being struck by a car, trying to cross that roadway, and then with the college bringing on a new president, I think that's what kind of started the conversations again. But they have been ongoing with MDOT in the city for some years prior to my start here at the city. So I just want to reiterate, it's not to, I don't think they're trying to do anything to harm any of the residents or businesses along that roadway. They're trying to make things safer for the community as a whole. I would like to add, we have been communicating with MDOT ever since they released that video and closed the public comment. They have been very open to the ideas and suggestions that we have shared. I think COVID has changed the way we can gather. Usually they would hold an in-person town hall meeting. If you remember, before they did the road dike here on Austin Ave, they had a town hall at the Ludington Center where they came. People were able to gather, they were able to share the ideas or project they have come up with at the time. And then you could kind of have that open dialogue within that town hall meeting. Unfortunately, with COVID and the gathering restrictions, they were unable to do that. So they thought the next best step would be to release this video and then seek public comment that way. Absolutely share that social media is not the only method of communication that works. They were very receptive to the idea of sending out mailers or a paper copy of some way notifying our community. So we're very happy that they're open to hear that this was not the best route, and so I'm happy that they're open to that. They also stressed that this is not a finalized plan. This is just the initial project that they've come up with. Unfortunately, I can't provide a time frame because they don't have one. They have received all of the public comments, and now they will be gathering internally to discuss the next step. Unfortunately, things at government level take time. Nothing moves fast here when working within the government. I know everyone is anxious to get an answer, but I can't, unfortunately, they don't know what the next steps are. They still have to discuss things internally, but they have received all the public comments. They're aware that this may not be the best option for our community. So they will just be discussing internally. We've asked that they share before they finalize anything. And I just want to reiterate that they have been very receptive and open to hearing our suggestions moving forward.
Councilor Langston.
I was actually, so on this discussion, I was actually gonna ask for this, but I think you may have just covered it. I was gonna ask that we request a presentation, after they've had their internal deliberations. I understand that I actually, as a council member, don't have a say in what happens to that. That's MDOT road. I'm glad that they did the, public comment piece, but I wanna see, before they go forward, it would be nice to have a presentation to council / the community about, so here's what your input resulted in, here's what it means for parking and or bike lanes. It would be, I know that COVID is hampering things, but it's video conferencing, we have safety protocols in place. I would like to request someone from MDOT to come either virtually or in person and explain what they did internally to reach the new or not new decision that they come up with after the public comment. And then the other thing I want to add here is that the reason I think this is so touchy is because there is one particular business that is impacted. It's one of the longest, oldest businesses in Albion that's been grandfathered in the space of that was owned for them at the time. And I think all of us have received, I think all of us received a phone call from that business. So I know that. But I want to make sure that we're going to search all avenues, because MDOT may decide that this is what they're going to do just the way they presented it, and we will not have control over that. So if that's the case, we're into solving problems at City Hall and City Council. How can we solve problems for that business going forward? And that may be talking with the land bank, it may be talking with other places to help solve their problem, which is going to hurt their business. So I agree with Councilwoman Waller, that I want to see more and I would like them to present. And then I would also like to problem solve, especially if a business becomes inconvenienced at some point.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, because we are, we just had a meeting last week actually with the land bank, so we are trying to work to resolve, to see if there's some possible solution. We are working as well as that business, we will be issuing something to them, confirming our follow-up from our meeting of last week. So yes, we hear their concerns and we are trying to figure out a solution that best go for, help everyone.
Councilman Green. I think too that it would be good if they could put it off. I mean, the governor has opened it up where you can have 25 people at a meeting now, and maybe as things get better pretty soon, it'll be to where you can have a few more, because I really think they need to show up and address Albion. Because I talked to some people that lived up through there, not only Mr. Ott's business, but there's a husband and a wife up there that live right next to him, 2 doors up from him, who both are ill. And they say that they have family that comes in to help them because one's got cancer, one has stroke. And so therefore they need extra help, but they have to park on the street because their driveway isn't long enough for all the cars to get in the driveway. So, you know, some people still need the space on the street. And I think unless we really have in that, hear from these people of their need of it staying like it is, that they don't know. So they just do what they think is best to do. But after they learn, then maybe they would think differently. I would really, on that street, a bike lane with the trucks and things that come off I-94 and down to there, to me seems dangerous anyway, but just as me. But, you know, I think people who have bought homes there, have lived there for years, and then all of a sudden everything's wanting to change is not in their best interest.
Councilman Clark. And I would also, when they come to present, I'd like to know, since they said it's a safety issue or because of someone that had been struck by a vehicle, I'd like to know if that was prior to the traffic light that was put there or after, and has there been any more incidents?
That was just within the past year.
Yeah, Dr. Seeley.
Yeah. Yeah, not more than 2 years, but I think this is the past year, that he got struck. Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Jackson.
Yes, thank you. Here. Also, I would like to know, Colin, what, as far as MDOT, what streets, certain streets they control, that you can't say anything about what they do or how they.
Well, so M99 is, completely under MDOT's control.
Okay.
So, we can certainly voice our opinions on it, but ultimately, it's a state road, so they have a say on what's gonna happen.
So
And the reason, oh, go ahead.
Michigan Avenue,
Okay.
from Superior Street East is all MDOT.
Okay,
Superior Street is all MDOT up to Austin Avenue.
okay,
And then Austin Avenue going out of town is all MDOT.
okay,
And then each street north of Austin Avenue is all MDOT.
okay. Yeah, the reason I wanted you to say that is because I hope that it's none of us that gives out false information. So when they do go back and listen to this conversation that we are having about their businesses, their homes, and also what we would like and would not to see as far as parking, and also the little bike trails, that they do understand that we're going to do all that we can. But what I continue to hear when we have discussions, sometimes someone is going back and giving false information or not giving the correct information. And that's kind of where I'm at with anything that's on our agenda. So that's why I wanted to hear that from you guys, that you have that information.
And I don't know if everyone remembers, but years ago, I can't remember how long ago it's been now since they resurfaced Michigan Avenue. That was 4 lanes marked the entire way. And then they resurfaced it and they didn't put the lane markings back in for whatever reason.
Okay.
So in 9 years now as chief, every opportunity I have had, I have gone after MDOT to put markings on the road. I don't care how you do it, but you can't just have this 14-foot lane or whatever, bigger than that, you know, that you just can't tell where people are supposed to drive. And so I've pushed and pushed and pushed. These conversations come up every so often, but this year was the first year they actually came and said, well, we want to do something different, so.
Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Councilman Reed.
I know I went to Marshall, and I go back over and I came in, and as I'm coming into Marshall, there's street, just like you said, there's no turn thing in the middle, but it's all marked. So you know you're in this lane, you're in this lane, you're in this lane, you're in this lane. You know? And so you're right, if it was marked properly, people would be less of going the way they wanted to go. They would know exactly where they were allowed to be.
And I do strongly agree that 3 lanes is better than 4 because it really does slow traffic down. But even with 3 lanes out there, there's room for parking as well. So parking is still an option with the 3-lane configuration they talked about.
Yeah.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Yes, sorry, thank you, Mayor. Then also, the other concern would be about going over into that bike lane. Can buses go into the bike lane?
Right.
Can UPS, FedEx, can any of those go over into those other lanes? And if they can't, those are the things that need to be considered.
And I noticed that downtown with the bike lanes, that you see people driving in them at times and not realizing what they are because they're not marked. And trust me, I've had all these conversations.
Councilman Wallace.
Thank you, Ms. Mayor. I also wanted to know, we say that this business is grandfathered in, so if they're grandfathered in, what privileges do they get that people don't get right now? Because it could be something that says they are allowed somehow parking space. I'm just thinking off the top of my head, I don't know for sure.
The grandfather statute only applies to the zoning within that district. So they are I believe they are grandfathered, they were grandfathered in under a residential, I believe.
In a residential zone, but that was actually changed to multi-use when we did the zoning a couple years ago. And so they actually are compliant within that zone. There is a requirement to have a certain amount of parking with a business, so they may not be compliant with that, and that might be grandfathered into previous issues. But I definitely don't know for sure.
Can we do something? Can let us know what they are eligible to do? Or have, you know.
It doesn't,
Yeah, they wouldn't.
it doesn't give you extra power or anything like that. It just allows you to continue to exist, although you don't match up with the zoning within that area.
Because it was approved. If we went there now, we couldn't say, well, you don't have enough parking, so you have to close your business. We couldn't do that, so. That would be the grandfather being part of it.
Okay.
Councilman Lanu.
Thank you, Mayor Snyder. I also want to thank all of you very much. It's very helpful for me to hear all of your feedback. I'm curious, was there a road diet done for this road?
Not that I'm aware, I mean, with just from the four down to.
That was their intent with what they were doing, was to do a road diet, which we from 4 down to 3 lanes.
Right, so, but did it actually happen?
They haven't done anything yet.
Well, who can describe a road diet?
What happened out on Austin Ave going towards Marshall, that was a road diet.
So was downtown too.
Yes, so how many lanes was?
Downtown, well, that was 4 in places. Downtown was 4 lanes until we redid the bricks last time and then did the road diet down there, so now it's 3 lanes. So there's a center turn lane and 2 travel lanes.
So is the process of doing a road diet like a study to determine what's the best configuration of the road, or it's just the actual act of changing the road? Okay.
I think it's the act of actually changing the road, narrowing the roadway.
Diagnosing is what they're referring to.
Okay. So this is, what they propose is the road diet. Okay. I just want to, move for us to amend the resolution, I believe it was 2012-09, so that we're not approving this specific configuration, which doesn't work for the business and residents that we said, so that it is clear to MDOT where we stand, and that is not in support of what they proposed. And with that, we can actually explore the options, see a presentation, have an understanding of what is available to us. I think that's the power that we have as a city in terms of the authority, and so that was my proposition.
Councilor, I would agree with that because I've been going up through there, looking at different times of day at what the cars that are parked out there. And on the other side of the street, where the Albion College campus is, where the, what is that?
Science
The
complex.
noise, yeah, the science building and things. There's always cars parked along there too, so evidently it's students who park along there. And then as you go on down a way, there's a few cars that's parked down there. But up at the top part and on both sides of the street, there's usually at least 10 to 12 cars. So that shows that it's being used, you know, for parking, so. But I agree with you. I think we need to let them know what our feelings are.
So we did vote on approving, that was the first vote. So it needs a second vote, correct? No, it doesn't. No, not for, vote.
Mayor Senator, I think you're thinking of the ordinance process, but because it was a resolution, we moved forward immediately. And that's why I'm requesting that we, if it's possible to amend a resolution, amend what we did already approve.
Is that? Councilman Williamson.
If I may, we can reconsider any resolution we have passed. We could put that on the next agenda to reconsider the approval of that ordinance, and then that would give time for us to get the ordinance back out to council, and then council member Lanu can maybe put together a justification for reconsidering it, and then we would be ready to have a discussion about it at the next council meeting. Clearly, MDOT is on a slow timeline, so this isn't a time of the essence situation. So I'm just adding, I'm actually fully in support of reconsidering but I think Colin is holding me up, so I'm gonna get. Someone's calling a whistle on the plate.
No, I'm not calling a whistle on the plate, so, I mean, just for purposes of clarification, the way that your council rules of procedure reads, if you don't make a motion to reconsider at the same meeting or immediately after, your motion to reconsider a previous vote has to be based upon new information. So, is my recollection of the council rules, and I can certainly pull them up, but the other thing is, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm looking for the resolution, yeah, your road configuration resolution here. It's your resolution was just whether or not you support their recommendation to reconfigure it. So I mean, you can certainly say, hey, you no longer support it, but that doesn't mean you have to understand that whether you support it or not is not dispositive of whether or not it's going to happen. Because you could come back and say we don't support it, and you can very well go ahead and do it anyway.
Right, but that wouldn't be smart.
And they should make it something.
I just wanted it to be clear that it's not contingent on council.
I'm gonna let city manager say,
If I can add it, I don't think we would want to say no, because I think we all can agree that this high speed or the poor marking, something needs to be addressed along that way. So I don't want to say that we wouldn't support them moving forward with a reconfiguration of somewhat. Just knowing that first project that they put out, that's not what we're looking for. And I think by the number of comments that they said that they have received from our community, they see that this isn't the probably best plan for that area. So I would be hesitant to vote no on that reconfiguration, because I don't think that's what we all are really meaning. I think we all can agree that something needs to be done to improve the safety hazards along that roadway.
Councilwoman.
For point of clarification, if I recall correctly, resolution 2021-09 does specifically say removing the parking on that street, and that's what I'm referring to.
The resolution 09, what was resolved was, City of Albion supports the NDOT recommendation to reconfigure M99 from its existing 4-lane configuration to 3-lane configuration with the project scheduled for spring 2021. That's what you resolved.
From 4 to 3 lanes. And Chief, if you're saying it can be 3 lanes and still have a parking, does it need parking?
In my conversation with NDOT, they gave us several configurations that they could do. They had the 3 lanes with the bike lanes on the outside, they had 3 lanes with parking on the south side, they had 3 lanes with parking on the north side. They had 4 lanes with no parking most of the way. So those were kind of all the options that they said they could do with it. I guess it's a matter of deciding. What they didn't want to have to do is parking on the south side part of the way, parking on the north side part of the way. They wanted it, it's either on one side the whole way, either north or south, but they could do parking the whole way.
If I may, if we do move forward with having the parking lane, that will be up to the city's responsibility for the maintenance and upkeep of that. If that didn't make that clear, that if we have a designated parking lane, they do not cover the maintenance and upkeep. So we will be responsible for the striping of all the parking areas. If the parking becomes torn up, we will be responsible for repaving and just the yearly maintenance and upkeep. So it will be an additional expense to the city if we do move forward with a designated parking.
But those big pay taxes.
Say it again.
That's taxpayers' money?
I agree with what you're saying about, you know, so if we picked out one of those places that would make it still convenient for parking up at that top end where the people have really, they had 4 pages of people signed and to send in that they wanted to keep parking there.
In my conversations with them, I had 2 concerns. One was the parking for the hair salon up there on the north side, and the other was the 500 block, which would be the area, the block just east of Washington Gardner. Washington Gardner is a 400 block because the houses on the south side of that road right there have no driveways. They have an alley to the back, but there's no driveways on the front part of that property. And those are that block right there is the only block that's like that all down Michigan Avenue. So there was some concern with no parking on the road. And then you run into the problem, well, they need parking there, so to me, the parking should be on the south side. There's much more room for parking on the south side with driveways and so forth, than there is on the north side. But then with the hair salon there, then their parking is on the opposite side of the road. They would have to walk across the street, which is part of a concern too.
Yeah.
Although I watch people do it every day. I drive up and down through there before usually crossing and parking that too. So, but.
Yes, Councilwoman.
Thank you, Mayor Snyder. City Manager Snyder, with regard to those added costs, is it possible to have an estimate so that we know what that amount would potentially entail in terms of?
Man, what that figure just walked.
Thank you, Director Miller. Thank you.
Rough estimate could be like 50,000 per lane. Depending on how much it needs, but that's just simply repaving 3 inches of the surface. Striping would be about 1,600 per lane, and that's given our 1998 paint sprayer that 2 guys had to use and walk behind. So it would be kind of a challenge for us with parking lanes.
And the thing to remember about that is when MDOT decides to resurface Michigan Avenue, they're not gonna say, well, we're gonna do the whole road and just not the parking lanes. The whole road's gonna get done and you're paying for it now. Right? It's not,
Right.
if you want to do it, if you're going to do it and you're going to pay for it.
And have they indicated when that would happen?
I don't know what their next resurfacing plans are. I know it's not too far out, but I would guesstimate 5 to 10 years probably.
So in the interim, it's approximately $1,600 for the remarking, and then for any additional maintenance, upwards to $50,000.
Yeah, that would be
Minimum
more,
repair.
Yep.
Thank you.
If you consider the road as a 4-lane road, we'd be responsible for one of those lanes, so a quarter of the cost would be our responsibility on whatever the cost of the road would be.
Right, any other comments?
One last idea, just thinking about the cost and what I've understood about who prompted this and how these discussions have been going, perhaps this is something that we could cost share with Albion College in terms of retaining some parking.
Yes, Councilman Williams.
In that same vein, just because I think there's a lot of messages going out of the community that are mixed right now, especially with the college doing a lot of meetings. All indications are that Albion College is in support of the plan as MDOT has proposed it. In fact, as recently as last week, I had the privilege of being in a meeting with the college president, and that's exactly what they said. So the college's support currently is under its MDOT's current proposal, which is to eliminate parking on both sides of the street. So.
And I will say, I'm moving forward, I know the college, they have plans to limit the number of cars that are allowed on campus so that they will change on which students are allowed to have their vehicles with them. So they are trying to get away from having so many cars and free up some of the parking and.
And the college's push in the MDOT meeting was actually for them to redo the entire road into a boulevard with one lane east, one lane west, and a median in the middle, so.
Yes, Councilman.
Just to kind of button this up, because I know we've said a lot about this, and I know it's some things on the agenda, but I think I want to add that this particular issue highlights something we deal with all the time in Albion, and that there's a lot of different silos of people doing a lot of different work in the same space. And it's time for the college, the city, for our healthcare providers, for the folks who are working on these big projects to actually do things together. Because I know that MDOT has met with the college privately, they've met here privately, they've met with other folks privately, they've talked to private citizens. And then we come to council, we get the message that it's their job and that, you know, we don't have any say on it, but we do. And I think our say is to pull people together to have these conversations and convene them. And Councilwoman, you're an expert at this as well, you've been doing this for years now, you're pulling people together. I think this highlights that we need to do more of that. That way we don't hear in one room that one thing is gonna happen and it's my vision, and another room that completely changes. We need to have a consistent, transparent vision across the community, across all sectors for things like this. I mean, this is a big deal, even though it seems like a minor change. This is a big change for a lot of people in our community, and I think we need to have more discussions, and there needs to be more inclusion at the table for people. So I think this highlights that in a big way.
Right, good discussion, folks. Okay. Discussion on the Erie Street speed limit, Mayor Pro Tem Jackson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I know, Kip can concur with me. I've called about, individuals running the stop sign when we out on the buses. We have many cars that do this. I know we tried to get a car out there. It has been out there a couple of times that I know of, but we need to do something, even if it's just with our police force, of trying to have them respect 25, because I'm not asking for it to go any lower than that, you know, 25, I can tell you, I can keep my foot there, I have to make sure it goes down, but I'm not gonna run a stop sign when the buses literally have their stop sign up for the children. And this continues to keep happening. And I can't catch a car by trying to take a picture, because I'm busy taking at the mountain, taking their temperatures, right? I'm like, another one just did that, you know? So, we need some help with this, and I'm quite sure we're not the only bus that this is happening to. And then also I understand that they're racing up and down the street too. And this is from precinct 3, so, you know, some people have told me that as well. So even at the west end and also at the east end, there's a lot going on as far as the problems of speed.
So the council aware, we're currently in the process of hiring 3 public safety officers that we're short for. We've got 3 public safety officers in field training right now, so I'm down 6 officers on the road. I have 2 working most of the time. 3 of those officers that are in field training are going to be done this month, so I'll have 3 additional officers out on the streets, which will help as well. Try to be able to get people in those areas to do that. I'll stress to them again that make sure they're out there those times. That's continuing to happen. Make sure they're there. But speeding around town has been a huge issue, but it's not just in Albion. It's happening nationwide. Ever since COVID struck, for some reason, everybody thinks they can drive way faster. To give you an example, I was going to fill up my son's car the other day, and I come up Michigan Avenue here on the street, and a car went by me going easily twice the speed limit. luckily, I have a phone and I know the officers and I know how to get hold of them, and they particularly as a result of that, so. But again, it's not always easy to do, and a lot of times it's just two officers out there, but, if you let me know, I stress them to be in those areas when they can be. And we'll continue to push for that to happen, but, yeah.
So you do know so you already know the main streets is more than just that one. You
Oh,
already
yeah.
seen it on that one.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I've been stressing everywhere we can be when we can be there, and I've tried to do some myself as well, but, it's just, you can't be everywhere at one time.
Exactly.
They have a lot of
That was it.
responsibilities.
Councilman, Eaton Street is another one. They're coming out of North Street and just not even stopping, just out of North, right on up. And up by the Marathon Station, they come out of there and just keep right on going. They don't even stop. And as they're going down the hill to the railroad track, this afternoon, there was a guy who was coming up the hill at a reasonable rate of speed. And whoever, the one in the truck behind him, thought he was going to, so he just pulled out and just came on up. And there was more cars coming this way, and he's passing, coming up that hill, that way. And there's a beige colored Lincoln that just flies down Eaton Street so fast until when it starts to go down to the railroad, that kind of bounces up like this and down.
If you have consistent times when things happen, that's very helpful for us because we can concentrate on being there in a short period of time. We've been very successful in getting a few people in that situation where I've been given very specific times that people continue to do things, so.
Yes, Councilman Long.
Thank you, Ms. Mayor. Can you also, check on Marion and North? They don't even stop, they just roll right onto it. I have two new parents, so they're concerned about.
That's the problem with fixing the roads and getting all the potholes out.
He's concerned about, the car just rolling to the stop sign and he just had his newborn baby, so I told him I would address it.
You speed down my road, you don't have a car by the time.
All right, good discussion. Next is our discussion on Highland Park. Councilwoman.
Okay, Highland Park, we have a pavilion, here, it's been here since, October 29th, to put up. And we wanted to just put up this spring, and Albion College has agreed to put the pavilion up. At almost $40,000. But what we have to do, they're only going to place the pavilion, so everything else has to be done by us. The landscaping, purchase of tables and things like that, I knew that was gonna have to be done by us. And pits and things of that sort. And so we're writing grants and we just got a grant from Senior Village for $5,000. So far, I've been adding the tables and things up, and because it's an intergenerational park, the tables that we put out there, we're putting tables out that are also handicap accessible, where you can roll your wheelchair up to there. And we're also putting 4 little folks tables, like for your little folks and my little folks. So they would have their own small tables to set up. So far, it's close to $20,000 with tables and pits and things like that. Now, we had a millage, the park millage, and I know 10,000 went to do the basketball courts at the park. There's 13,000 left. And I am asking the council to please allow us to use that 13,000 to get the things for Highland Park. We want to have Juneteenth there this year. The college is going to put the pavilion up, if I'm not mistaken, Doug said the last part of April, because we want to get the Highland family back here, and they are getting several are to the point to where they can't come. But we know that there are 2 or 3 that can come to see the park dedicated to their dad, and then we'll be all through with doing a rush on trying to get that done. But there's some that we really need to do something now if they're going to be able to come. So,
Councilman Wayne.
So my question is, the college agreed to put the pavilion for you, or for Holland Park. But the city needs to pay for it's roughly 13,000.
No, the college is going to place the pavilion, but they're not gonna do any of the groundwork. So we've got the landscaping to do, the cleaning up around after they get it up. Plus, we've got to buy tables for it.
Right, but as it relates to the pavilion, does the college have to do anything, like, is there groundwork that needs to be done for the pavilion to be placed?
Yeah,
Or is
we're
it
putting it in place.
How much is it gonna, I know the college is putting it in place, do we have to do cement? Do we have to, what is the city?
I think they're doing cement.
Liable.
I talked to Ray today. They're doing cement.
So I guess my question is, I'm inclined to support finishing up the Holland Park project. But we haven't seen a budget or a master plan for Holland Park. And to many folks in the community, it feels like we're spending a lot of city resources on a park that will never be finished. And it's beautiful and gorgeous, and we love using it, and I love the summer camps that are on there, but I'd like to know, when will Holland Park be finished? And is this?
Holland Park will be finished when Holland Park is finished. Because, okay, we've got the children that's, Jill has said she wants to have most of, the summer recreation program there. Also, she's also doing the senior citizens recreation there because it's right across the street from the senior center. Now, there's several things. There's already $250,000 worth of money in that park. But right now, that park is not finished. And I can't give you a budget or a date and a time as to when it will be finished. But we have not gotten any money from the city but $15,000, and that was to match the grant of Cronin Foundation in order to get it, when the gentleman wrote the grant for us, Cronin Foundation and Firekeepers came together on it. He wrote it with tables and everything in it, but they didn't go that way. They only went for pavilion. So therefore, we still had to get that $15,000 matching in order to get $25,000 from them. And we've done that. Otherwise, the city has not put a penny.
Yes, Councilman.
I continue to be an ardent supporter of Holland Park. I don't want there to be any insinuation that I am not supportive of the redevelopment of that park and the wonderful work that Councilwoman Reed and so many others have done. And at council, we vote on spending money in the city, and usually with projects and programs, we have budgets, and we show who are the key players, who are the ones who are contributing. And for Holland Park, we continue to approve the changes and things happen in the park, but we never see a budget for these projects. So we don't know if we spend another $13,000 doing a land improvement around the pavilion around the park, does that complete the Holland Park project? That's what I'm getting at. I want to know, when will we be done investing time and energy in the capital park project and move forward on other parts of the city that need these resources as well? Because Holland Park is an example of what we can do to so many spaces in Albion. And it will continue to set the example, but we need to figure out when are we done with Holland Park so that we can now focus on something else. So again,
We
very supportive.
continue to work on Victory Park too. Money is constantly going there too. And when they put up that other thing, that the park that they've got up there now, the play area, that was absolutely years ago. I worked on it, I know. So, you're talking like Howard Park is some park of mine. This is Albion City Park. Parks continue to have to be things done to it. And no, we're not through with it yet, because after we do that, I've already been talking with people about cleaning up down along that riverway where all of that trees, well, not trees, but the bushy stuff is all growing and everything. So Holland Park is not finished. And it's gonna take a little while for Holland Park, but I have not bothered the city money to do Holland Park. Starting out with Cheryl Mitchell, who wrote grants. So it's not the city money I'm using to do Holland Park. This is just a one time that I'm asking for $13,000. And that money came from the park millage, not Albion's money.
Yeah, sorry, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I guess what I would want to know, just some kind of procedure with being new on council, is how do we go about every project that's done in the city? Do we ask
each product that is coming from the city or from any grant that maybe our city manager has went forth for? How do we go about getting those funds allocated? Is there some kind of business plan? Is there, what is the procedure? Is there a procedure? Because I feel that if there's a procedure for one, there's a procedure for all. So, and I agree with seeing dollars and cents. Now, I agree with that. Why would we want to do anything? I don't want to see that. But for my sake, for me, I want to know, how do we do this?
You know what?
So can she answer before you go out? Because I really want to know this, because I think it will stop this right here if there is a procedure. Okay, because I believe that's all that's being asked. And the way that we do give things, I would love to come to you and just talk to you and tell you what I like to get started, how it be done, you give me money for it, and I continue to ask for it. But I know there's supposed to be a procedure for this. And if there has not been a procedure, we need to get one enforced, okay? Because we have other businesses too that continue to keep asking for money, keep saying that we're not doing anything for them as well. But if there's a procedure that needs to take place for it to be done, then this whole city of Albion needs to be following that procedure, and even the council. Can you tell me?
City manager. Yes, thank you, Mayor and Mayor Pro Tem. Like, Mayor, this is why it's important to update our 5-year Parks and Recreation plan, our master plan. Within that plan, it should detail, highlight any proposed projects or whatever we would like to see within our park spaces. So you should have a rough budget estimate on what these projects or upgrades will cost. I'm trying to read our current one, which does highlight a lot of the projects that we have accomplished in Holland Park. So we can refer to our current Parks and Recreation plan to back some of what we have done within Holland Park. But this is why it's very important that we get members to apply and to come on to our Parks and Recreation Advisory Commission, so we can update this current plan to finish the Holland Park transformation and then start addressing other park spaces. We have so many park spaces within our community that need the attention that we've been devoting to Holland Park. So it's our Parks and Recreation master plan.
So there is a process.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and that's a process of it. So if we do have something like that, I would like to be a part of that.
When I first started working on Holland Park, I was told by the city, my permits, we have no money for parks. So what do? You start looking for places that are accepting grants, that you can get a grant from. So that is exactly what I did. Every single penny came through the city of Albion. First grant Cheryl wrote was to fire keepers for $35,000. I've got, and I will give you a budget please. Went through fire keepers, $35,000. Okay, we got that. We got the school in, there was a church that came and worked with Albion College on placing that. Okay, fire keepers paid for that whole spot. Okay, then the next thing we did was we put in a children's walk garden out there. Philanthropic women, $13,800, I believe it was. They paid for that. Then we put in the teen section, wrote a grant to the hotel, what is it,
Firekeepers?
when you get money.
Firekeepers?
No, it wasn't fire keepers, it was the whole Calhoun County, was the Calhoun hotels in Calhoun County paid money into an account. And we got the money from there to put in the teen section, senior section. I went to senior, to the senior millage, and they gave me the $25,000 to do the senior section. The hotels, $25,000 to do the teen section. Now, Larry Williams wrote a grant for $90,000. All of these were grants that other people wrote because Albion doesn't even have grant writers. He wrote a grant, had them write a grant for $90,000. Now, I think if I'm not mistaken, Cheryl worked on that. And with that, they put in the handicap bathroom. They redid the courts out to the basketball thing, and they did the groundwork in the senior center, in the senior section. With that $90,000, and that came from Enbridge. Now, the $53,000 that we bought the pavilion with came from firekeepers, Cronin Foundation, and $15,000 to match the Cronin Foundation that came from the city. Otherwise, all these grants, I have researched them, looked them up, got somebody to write the grant, wrote the grant, even, you wrote one for us. And then when we got the money came straight down there, and Tom paid the bill right out. So, and just like I said, I can get you a copy of all of that. So, see, Albion has paid nothing. Albion has gotten a park for free. And I have worked on that for the last 6 years and have not got one penny for searching the grants out and everything, for going out there working in the park, keeping the weeds and things pulled in out of the flower gardens, nothing. And we're fixing to put in an irrigation system to History Hill. We've had the money set out there for the longest until we got a city manager who just put a hold on everything, through us. And so we didn't get anything put up while she was there. And so now that she got gone, we finally got back to getting something done in Highland Park. Now, that's the way that goes. So if there's not a plan, it's not my fault. But I have put in $250,000 worth of stuff put in out there for Albion. Cause I got my park up on the side of my house. Yeah.
Thank you, Councilman Reed.
Yes, I just wanted to applaud you. I know that you helped me.
I
No, I know, but I know that that's not what you're looking for, but I wanted to acknowledge that in the midst of also honoring the fact that we have parks without electricity or bathrooms. And so I think that that's kind of what I'm hearing, is just people wanting to know that that's also in our parks and recreation planning. That's also going to be
Electricity and what?
bathrooms.
Oh, we had top-notch bathroom until somebody went out there and tore off the kind that you sit down on it, when you get up, it flushes.
But other parts in our city don't.
So,
I just wanted to kind of bring it full circle and do recognize you've helped me with thinking about like the crawl space and outdoor spaces and different things. So I know that you bring a wealth of knowledge, and I just wanted to know that I appreciate you for that. And I recognize that there are parks in our community centrally located amongst, complex, dense neighborhoods that don't have bathrooms or electricity.
well, I volunteered. I said to Vicky, I said, when I get Highland Park finished, then fine, I'll help anybody else who wants to do it. Because now I've learned how to do it. Now I've made connections with people, so when I need money, I can call them, or I can say, do you have a grant available? Oh, yeah, we do. And they'll send me the information and work on it, So it's not that I'm trying to be stingy and just do one part, but I'm gonna finish that part. And I'm gonna, and by the way, I also, for anybody who's not aware of what Highland Park is all about, I brought information. This tells you all about Highland Park. And 3 kids that got killed coming from school over at the railroad track because they had to go to West Warren School. Because Albion at one time was segregated. And all Black children went to West Warren School. They didn't go to the new Austin School or to Dyrone. They went there, and the white kids were moved out into the new schools. Now, if anybody want to know anything about the Highland Park transformation, it's right here. I have a copy for everybody.
Quick closing statement.
Yes.
I think the one thing that's probably not being said is, since it's like coming to the end of Len's term, is probably gonna be a sense of accomplishment if Holland Park is finished once she comes to a close. So it's probably perceived as maybe she's more interested in that, but she's very dedicated to all the parks. I think it's just, she was hoping to have that come the end of her term. I think that was probably maybe just.
No, that's not it. I don't care about everyone in my church. I don't care about people appreciating me for doing it. I am doing something that Mr. Bonner, for one thing, asked me to do it. And when I give a person my word, and at that time, Mrs. Mitchell was city manager, and she said, yes, go ahead and do that. And so I'm finishing up what I started. My mom taught me, never start something that you're not gonna finish. So when I finish it, but I'm not looking for anybody's thanks. I'm not looking for anything but to get that part finished for Albion. Because just like I said, up on the side of my house, I got 2 trampolines, I got a bounce house, I've got a zip line, everything. I don't, you know, when my grandchildren come, that's usually where we spend most of our time. But this, I know, we have people that come over here from Springport, from Jackson, a lot of people. And in the summertime, you'll see more white people out there, or just as many as you see black, because of the park having something to offer. And that's all I'm trying to do, is get it finished so that people will come and use it.
Thank you, Councilor.
But, you know, if they don't want to get $13,000, that is no problem, because there's other places I will apply to.
The city manager's report.
If you want to go up,
So I'm sorry, very sorry. Yes, Councilor.
I would like to have, I had a conversation with Elaine Beck today about some information about, I was asking about Austin School, because at one time I heard that it was purchased. And it's not purchased. So I would like to know specifically what properties we have left from them, how many they have sold, and where we're going from here. I understand that they're still not, taking people into properties or, you know, open, you know, so if somebody is interested, they're still doing the COVID-19 guidelines, which I kind of question because of the fact that real estate is booming at this time, then we should be moving along with our properties and.
So you just like an update on land bank owned properties of.
Yep, that for Albion. Yep. And how many they sold? If they sold.
Councilor.
I have 2 future agenda items, and it may take some planning on the city manager's part to get this done. I would appreciate a full update from Star Commonwealth about their intended use of the property and the current situation where the rumblings across the community are that migrant children are going to be detained from the border. I don't want to speculate on how many, although it sounds like a large number, and the fact that there could be children out there as soon as today or tomorrow. I'd like to know just what they're doing, how that affects public safety, what that means for public health as we move through as we still are in a pandemic, whether we like it or not. And I'd like to know what the average citizen would have to worry about that type of activity taking place in our own backyard. Recognizing that I don't think they're quite in the city limits, but have an Albion address. And the work that they do will have a lasting impact on the county as a whole. So I'd like to have an update from them. The CEO of STAR should come to city council and bring an update. I also would like to ask for an update from the committee, the Albion First Committee between EDC, DD, and the chamber. And this may not need to be an update at a meeting. Maybe we need to do a study session as council with that committee to figure out what happened and get an autopsy of why Albion First didn't move forward. And if it's a matter of, you know, personal priorities on the board, that situation may have been remedied this evening with the addition of new members, but I'd like to know what happened and why we aren't moving forward, as the city from the beginning has been of the mindset that this council has been that this should be something that they work towards. So those are the 2 major things that I would like an update on.
Yes, Councilor.
Thank you, Mayor Snyder. Not necessarily in 2 weeks, but perhaps within a month, we could look at the goals that we established and make sure there are metrics, timeline, and then if people want to be assigned to different initiatives that we're clarifying who is actually going to be taking on any additional responsibility to assist in those goals.
Any other items? No, okay. Do we have anybody on for public comments?
Yes, we have 2.
Okay.
Carrie first. Sonia Brown first.
Hi, Sonia Brown, 713 Orchard Drive. I listened to the meeting and I just want to speak on one issue. The council unanimously voted to table a reappointment. I don't have issue with tabling a reappointment. It's the reason behind the tabling that is disturbing to me. And some of you, I want you to receive this in love, okay? What I heard was that the applicant voted against and led the EDC board against what was referenced as a great opportunity. You know, the definition of a great opportunity is really subjective. What may be great for you may not be. And is that a reason to remove or exclude someone because they had the audacity to have an independent thought or opinion that contradicts the majority, quote unquote, wishes, AKA the good old boys club that's been developed over the years? So it's really disturbing to me. Our boards and commissions already lack representation that mirrors this community. I see and I hear policymakers screaming diversity and inclusion, but you act in complete opposition of that. And I am extremely disappointed. You know, replacing him with someone who may vote to go along with Albion first, it doesn't negate the concerns that at least four EDC members have. I also heard that the applicant said, you know, the EDC, the majority that voted against the Albion First plan, said that they like the way their board operates. And that's fair. I'm just disturbed by the reason giving. Inclusion and diversity is you're supposed to celebrate differences, not exclude people with the audacity to stand on an independent thought. So just, you know, I am extremely disappointed. The reasoning behind that vote is troubling. So council, I hope that you all do some work, do some soul searching, and do the right things. Thank you.
Sonia. Next will be Garrett.
Can you hear me?
Sure can, go ahead.
Okay, Garrett Brown, 1016 South Superior Street. Sonia stole my thunder. I two things I wanted to do. One is to remind the council under Rule 7, subsection C, that no member is supposed to speak for more than 10 minutes on an issue. And I think that the Holland Park discussion was just too long because there was no vote tied to that. So that needs to be separate. I want to echo what Sonia said. So basically, this is something that I believe the council, it seems that Councilmember Williamson is deeply ingrained in it, but if you are the other members of the council, look into this. This is really important. So the ED is to basically grow industry and reduce unemployment in our community. And for generations, the board has not been diverse. It has been an old boys club. There have been people on the board who had no credentials in economic development. And what's happened is as Albion has lost its industry, there's been no accountability, right? So in recent years, there was a pact or an agreement between ARC and the EDC to do economic development. And I fundamentally believe that that was a conflict of interest, to have two economic, one public and one private in the same space. Now, how I read this from a political perspective, what's happened tonight with this appointment, is that kind of what Sonia had said. Mr. Herm McCall, who is currently one of only 3 African Americans on the chair the board, but obviously the majority of the board voted no, so we shouldn't pin it on him. And the other issue here is, and I've raised this over and over again, even under the last mayor when the council discussed this, is switching from EDC to a joint nonprofit, Albion First, will eliminate transparency and accountability that are built into public bodies. So right now, you have a right as a citizen to attend an EDC meeting, to FOIA documents. There's a certain level of built-in transparency that the EDC operates, and so does the DDA, they operate under as public entities. Albion First would be a nonprofit. So my fear is that it would actually reduce transparency, increase inequality and unequitableness, because what's going to happen is you're going to have the same people, whether it's the leadership at Homestead Bank or Amy DePraise, are going to be in this group making decisions without the accountability that residents and the council would have. So I think I encourage another study session, but to me, it really is a power grab, because what we've basically seen in the past couple of years is basically the hijacking of economic development by a small group of people who are not representative of the economic and racial diversity in this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Garrett.
Gary Tompkins.
Hi, Gary, can you hear me?
You went to sleep.
Hi there, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right. Hey, good evening. Madam Mayor, council members, City Manager Snyder, and those residents watching this evening. Gary Tompkins, your Calhoun County Commissioner. Great to be with you folks this evening. I'll try to be as brief because I know the time is getting late. First and foremost, we as a Board of Commissioners approved recently the waiver of the 2021 food restaurant license, campground inspections, and pool inspection fees, again, for the 2021 year. The hope is that the waiver of these fees is certainly an effort to help businesses hardest hit by the pandemic over the course of the past year and certainly assist them. As we talk about senior millage that I chair, we approved senior millage committee reappointments to 4 individuals, including Albion's Willie Tabb as well. And then as Councilmember Lynn Reed had indicated, the senior millage was very welcome to approve the $5,000 for the Holland Park Pavilion, and certainly appreciate Councilman Reed for being there to assist in answering any questions. So we were more than happy to be able to assist in that process. Also, one of the things that have become a major thing, as most of you know, with the COVID pandemic, is certainly the lack of high-speed internet, certainly broadband, certainly, and not only in Calhoun County as a whole, but especially on the east side. I kind of refer to the east side of Calhoun County as the broadband desert, if you will. The goal is that now we're starting to get in some heavy discussion regarding to bring high-speed internet to the entire parts of all of Calhoun County, as opposed to just very few. I've been participating in these meetings as the county will be creating a task force to address, and we've approved a membership agreement with Merit Network to conduct a study. Additionally, we've met with also Branch County officials as a possible collaboration partner in this process. Branch County is actually ahead of us in terms of how they've laid out their plan in terms of trying to get access to all parts of their county. So we're hoping to partner with them to bring more resources and more availability so that we can get all of Calhoun County to a greater opportunity to get high-speed internet access. This morning, I had the opportunity, as I came across a grant opportunity regarding blight elimination for redevelopment ready committees, which the City of Albion is. I had sent this grant opportunity to City Manager Snyder as well as Mayor Snyder as well, just as again, always an opportunity to come. When things come to my attention, I want to make sure that I pass onwards, and I'm always looking for methods and ways to certainly help the City of Albion. So again, another opportunity to eliminate some of the blight that the community has. My monthly newsletter, you folks know, most of you get it. It's a great resource to know what's going in and around our communities, as certainly well as Calhoun County. In the newsletter this month, I highlight, unfortunately, as you guys know, roads are my favorite thing to talk about. I really highlight the continued failure that we see in Lansing concerning roads and bridges. You know, it's really depressing. The fact is that the MDOT recently put out their 5-year transportation program, and a total of virtually 0 projects, bridges and roads, were included on that, was slated for our area. As we know, the Rebuild Michigan program was also instituted, and its objective was to rebuild state highways and bridges that are critical to the state's economy and carry the most traffic, which is absolutely a good thing. But we also must understand only 30% of our roads in the state of Michigan are considered state and primary roads, and then over 70% of our roads in the state of Michigan are actually local roads and local city streets that many of us drive on, and that I get numerous calls on to those folks who are breaking tie rods and costing people much, much money. As a matter of fact, interesting enough, in a recent township meeting that in the 7th district, a state legislature later was there and indicated that the only person that seems to be talking about the Act 51 issue is myself, Gary Tompkins. And I find that to be a problem with that picture because, you know, in and itself, shouldn't the legislature, shouldn't state government be tackling this issue and addressing this, as roads are the biggest issues that residents have in the state of Michigan, and addressing this issue in a way that creates a level playing field for everybody. And I'm really sad to say that we aren't seeing any action or any new ideas in Lansing. And who are the ones that are suffering? Is it residents of the city of Albion as well as residents in Calhoun County are in fact suffering. So, matter of fact, I've had a number of residents that have come to me and reached out to me, and as a matter of fact, they're beginning to make some significant phone calls to Lansing. So hopefully we can get some real results to be moved. I mean, Albion under my plan stands to get an additional 1.8 million a year for 5 years, which gets you close to about $9 million extra that you guys will be able to use on your city streets that you well know are much needed. And then finally, I also highlight the social isolation plan that was recently approved by the Senior Millage Allocation Committee, which really focuses on strategies to combat and how senior millage can utilize its resources to address this problem that we know has been going on for many, many years, certainly for our residents, but also with COVID really stepping forward and putting this to the forefront. You know, interesting enough, during this study, of 43.1% of people 60 and older in Calhoun County live alone. So you think about that, almost half of the people that are 60 and older in Calhoun County live alone, and most of them don't have availability to not only media to the internet and aspects, and essentially don't know a lot of the services that are available, and many of them do have a lot of issues going forward that we're really out to address with this social isolation plan. Our implementation plan on this is June 1st of 2021, and we're going to look real hard, and you could be able to see on my newsletter a number of items that we've identified that we're going to start making hopefully some significant impact on social isolation, certainly for our seniors. And interesting enough, if you know anybody that may be interested in being a senior ambassador, which is part of our social isolation plan, is to get people on the local level in our townships and our municipalities to get involved. And you're interested, contact the senior services and just tell them you want to be a senior ambassador. And the program will be expanding quickly, and there's a lot more information to be had. So again, a lot of things going on as we talk about not only broadband internet access in the county, but dealing with social isolation. So just a lot of things going on, and I'm always happy to be here. If you guys always have any questions or comments, please feel free to drop me a line or contact me, and I'll do anything I can do to help you folks out. So with that being said, all of you have a wonderful evening and hope to see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Yes, Councilwoman Reed.
I think when I did my presentation, I asked for a vote on whether or not the $13,000 could be used for our park. Now, pardon?
It's a discussion.
That's in.
It was a discussion item on the agenda.
Okay, yeah. Now, what do I need to put it on the next week?
You have to put it on.
Time for a vote?
Yeah.
Just put it on there.
Okay, city manager report.
That's Vicky, Mayor. You all should have received a copy of my report. Just want to highlight, we currently have the auditors on site to conduct the yearly audit of our 2020 budget. They will be here over the next 2 weeks. Our finance department is very busy working with them to get it completed. I don't remember who asked for a street sweeper schedule update, so I would like to share that with you. The Department of Public Services will begin street sweeping during the month of April, and will continue on a weekly basis through the fall months. Very similar to the plow route, sweeping will begin on the trunk lines, followed by the major and local streets. So we are happy. We were able, the company that we rent the street sweeper from, if we rented it for an additional week, we essentially purchase the sweeper, so we will now have a sweeper on hand to address our streets. I mean, I just want to highlight with it the warm weather. I know people will begin doing their deep spring cleaning. The citywide cleanup event has been scheduled for Saturday, June 26th, in partnership with the county electronics and scrap tire event. It will be from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at Harris and Ketchum Fields. So please spread the word on that. Update on the Albion YMCA program. So interviews for the recreation manager have been scheduled for the week of April 12th. They did mention they have 3 candidates from Albion who are there looking to interview for that position. The YMCA Recreation Advisory Council met for the first time during the week of March 22nd. That advisory board consists of Perry Gardner, Vicky Davis, Hazel Elias, Shauna Gamble, Trish Franzen, and Leroy Wright. The board discussed programs, classes, and the annual daddy-daughter dance. Please note, once the recreation manager has been brought on board, they will be coming to present before council to provide updates on the Recreation Advisory Commission, as well as give you just general updates on the YMCA program. And just as a reminder, the fitness classes will not take place this week. April 5th through April 10th, the fitness classes at Washington, Gardner, and Bowman Theater will resume on April 12th. They have closed for spring break, so just a reminder, no classes this week. The Peabody Lofts, we were notified that the Peabody Loft project will receive the 2021 Michigan Historic Preservation Network Building Award. It's an exciting award for our community to receive just to honor all the outstanding rehabilitation that has taken place on that historic building in our downtown district. So we are excited to receive that honor from the state of Michigan. City Hall operations, I just want to highlight this. City Hall will continue to operate as is through the month of April. However, with the positivity rates increasing within our county, we are closely watching that and will continue to monitor and we'll keep operations as is if we do see the positivity rate still high. We want to still be mindful. I know everyone is anxious to get back to a sense of normalcy, but we don't want to get ahead and reopen too soon and we see an additional spike within our county. So we are actively watching that, and I will keep you up to date on city operations. Just want to remind everyone, water shutoffs will resume on May 12th. I mentioned that last week's study session. The door hangers and notices went out last Thursday, April 1st, to all delinquent account holders in all 3 sections. Just as a reminder, by May 3rd, 50% of the past due balance must be paid, with payment arrangements scheduled for the remaining balance, with disconnections taking place on May 12th. So please, we have provided with the notices a flyer to highlight any assistance programs. So please encourage your constituents to utilize those services if they need. We also encourage them to contact Lindsay within our utility bill to arrange payment arrangements if need be. And then I just want to highlight, Councilmember Lemieux brought it up, with our finance, just with having the auditors on site over the next 2 weeks, we will be having a department head meeting to discuss the goals, but I am planning to bring back my recommendation at the first May meeting on timeline and moving forward. So I don't want you to think that we're not working on it if you don't see it on the next April. We just want to give our department heads time to, we want to present you with something solid. So you should expect that within that first May meeting. Awesome, thank you.
All right, councilman comments. Yes, Councilman Clark.
I had an opportunity to visit Wallflower Crossing. And when they get finished with it, this is the layout of how many modular homes will be out there. and it's over 300 and some homes that should be out there. They have 8 in place now, with the hopes ahead that they'll put their, town, the clubhouse in there soon. So if anybody, would like to go out there, they should go see it. And I was speaking to the manager, she's really excited about being out there. Was a little disturbed when I called the city manager and to help me out with it, but this is just a thing that happens in Albion that we're gonna get better with. And she said she had been trying to probe to get Consumer Power to come put their meters in for 3 months, and they hadn't showed up yet. That's not a good thing for us when we've got new developers coming in, and whatever we need to do, or however we need to let them know. I see that they've been on Erie Street working all week. Okay, that's fine, but you have different people for different areas to do different things. And 3 months seems to be a little bit a long length of time for somebody to request meters, But they're 3-bedroom and 4-bedroom, and they're really, really nice. So if anybody has a chance, go out there to visit them.
Did you just go out during the day?
She's usually out there on Thursdays and Fridays right now.
I did, okay, so there are 2 things that are on my mind tonight as we close up, and I just want to share them. So my first one, probably, I think one of the most important ones is the Holland Park, my comments on Holland Park. While I stand firm on wanting more information and a budget, I also stand firm on making sure that we do see it to completion. I don't want there to be any, illusion that I am advocating for Holland Park to not be completed. And in fact, I would be incredibly supportive of spending more resources in that park out of the city's budget to see it to completion. I just want more information. I feel like we owe it to the citizens and to folks to know, like, when is this going to be done, how much is this going to kind of cost, and what is the remainder of the city's investment in that. So again, I also want to recognize Council Member Reed's work on it. I mean, it's extraordinary. I mean, from start to finish, when Dr. Mitchell got here to now, it's extraordinary what it's happened at Holland Park, and we want to keep building that success on all parks in this community. Holland Park is a model for the next park that we focus on. So that's number 1. Number 2, I want to focus on our conversation around the reappointment of Mr. McCall to EDC. I am in no way encouraging to block his appointment going forward. This is an accountability measure on council's behalf to understand what is going on at the EDC when we've had these joint conversations with the EDC and the DDA and the chamber to move a conversation forward about an initiative that was supposed to benefit the entire community around economic and workforce development. So not appointing him tonight doesn't mean he won't get appointed at another subsequent council meeting, but it's important for us as leaders of this community to get answers as to why something didn't happen. And there may be a really great reason, we don't know yet, but right now, the facts that we have are that the EDC board, led by Mr. McCall, voted down the what seems to be an incredible opportunity for the community to move forward on our economic journey. So I appreciate the comments made by those from the public tonight, and I also want to recognize that I feel we actually are instituting an accountability measure, and we're looking at our council objectives and goals that we did a really great job of discussing this last week, which I just wanted to highlight. I was really proud of the work that we did this last week around our goals. And I just want to reiterate, I don't have anything against Mr. McCall. I actually don't know him very well. I've only seen him in passing. But this is an accountability measure that we instituted. And I really appreciate council's support and strong statement on that this evening. So, and again, I will vote in the affirmative for Mr. McCall if that's what's going to happen going forward. But it's time for us to get some answers about that. Thank you.
Over the past 2 weekends, it showcased what our community is capable of doing when it comes to, again, looking out for our youth. The YMCA held an Easter egg hunt at Victory Park 2 weekends ago, and then this past Saturday, Audra and Nate Fuentes created a collaboration with a lot of local businesses, local volunteers, to also host another Easter egg hunt. So I've always said, when it comes to our community pulling together for the youth, These are two prime examples of what we can do when we work in collaboration. It was so heartwarming to see so many enthusiastic kids in the park, having fun and having their parents with them. You know, City Manager Snyder was there with her little one, just the excitement that they had, not only doing the Easter egg hunt, but also playing together in the park. That, you know, it was great to see. So I wanted to give kudos to our YMCA, to the Fuentes family, and all the volunteers and businesses that work with them to pull that off. I know many of us have probably heard about the racial incidents that have been happening on the college campus. As a former student myself, a minority student, it is very disheartening to hear that such incidents are still happening. I do want to make our citizens aware that they are investigating and trying to put an end to this. They have pulled in other law enforcement agencies to get an end to this, but I do want to stand with the students on campus that this has no room in Albion. Doesn't have any room on campus, it doesn't have any room within our community, because this is our community. I consider the college students part of our community. So I do stand with the administrators, the students who are working very hard to put an end to this, and to the students know that this is not welcome here in our community. So with that said, do I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Support.
Roll call, city manager, city.
Councilmember Clark. Yes. Reed. Yes. Jackson.
Yes.
Waller. Lanu.
Yes.
Williamson.
Yes.
And Mayor Snyder.
Yes, so I'll call meeting to order at 9:48 AM.